Hi, hello, what's up, Jelly Cups? My name is Crispy Jelly. And yes, I'm doing a face reveal. It's insane. I know, it's crazy. Who would have guessed that this early into my YouTube career, I would be doing something as legendary as a face reveal? However, I have multiple reasons for doing this. First of which, I don't think this face is going to be getting any better. So I might as well do it now while I'm in my prime and I've got my dashing good looks and handsome face. Secondly, with hair like this, who needs a mask? I'm practically invisible. And thirdly, I feel that if a true community is to be created, they need a face to mock. And so here I am, ready to deliver. On the plus side, I don't think there's any topping the dream incident, so I'm in the clear. Internet, have at thee. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about Ahsoka. Ahsoka is the newest Star Wars show to come out on Disney Plus, as far as I'm aware. Its premise is it is a sort of sequel type thing for the animated Star Wars show Rebels, and a continuation type thing for Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. To be clear, Mando and Boba Fett do not appear in this show, but Ahsoka, who is the main character of Ahsoka, appeared in their shows. Needless to say, there is quite a bit of outside context to consider when delving into the characters and world building, but I'll get into that. What I will say is I will not be doing a recap for the priorly mentioned shows, because that would require me to summarize not only 2 shows, but also Clone Wars, and pretty much anything else that Ahsoka has been in, and I'm not doing that, cause good lord. At any rate, I think it's time for us to get into the first episode of Ahsoka. Spoilers ahead if you hadn't guessed that already. It opens with a PowerPoint slide of a recap of the current situation, describing how new bad guys are afoot, looking for the evil blue boy from Rebels, and how Ahsoka found out this plot through another bad guy, and was going to find evil blue boy Thrawn to kill him first. Or stop him. Maybe arrest him. Anyway, she needs a map in order to do so, which leaves us where we are now. So the evildoer that told Ahsoka about the map is being transported on a big boy ship, and this ship is confronted by a little ship. The big ship asks the little ship to identify themselves and send a clearance code. Little ship sends an old Jedi clearance code, which piques the interest of big ship. They let them aboard, and surprise! They aren't Jedi, they're evildoers, and they murder everybody and take the prisoner. Now, there are a couple things to talk about in this opening scene. First of which is a reoccurring issue in the whole series. The people on the big ship are supposed to be smart, and they followed this premise when asking the little people to identify themselves. The issue is, they let them aboard before the little ship actually did identify themselves. I'm sure with the technology available, they could have established some kind of radio contact, but instead they said, hey, hop on board. Totally nothing bad could happen, right? There are a lot of strategic stupids like this in the future, and I will be pointing them out as we go. Secondly, this is where we are introduced to our main evil folk, whom I will be referring to as Greybeard, Assistant, and Witch Lady. Greybeard is by far the most interesting character in the show, and I will get into that later. What I will say now is that he is a character that is immediately established to be somebody who has a weird sense of honor, somebody who holds their word for a price. A Sith bounty hunter, if you will. This is a very cool idea for a villainous character, adding more nuance and potential than the average, oh ho ho, time to rule the world because my mommy left me on a doorstep. Assistant is this little white-haired girl that I call Assistant because all she ever does is follow around Greybeard. She doesn't really ever contribute more than that. And then Witch Lady is a witch and she's a lady, so it's fairly self-explanatory. Thirdly, another reoccurring issue with Ahsoka is the flaccid lightsabering. In Ahsoka, it is more flaccid than wet spaghetti. This gets a bit better in a couple of the later episodes, but it is dishearteningly inconvincing most of the time. Observe. Allow me to compare a lightsaber duel between Ahsoka and another Disney Star Wars show, The Mandalorian. As you can see, there is a stark contrast between the choreography of these two scenes, And believe me, it doesn't get much better. With that, we open on the next scene, which features Ahsoka moving through ruins at a low rate of speed. She eventually reaches a circle bit and does a cool spinny lightsaber trick. She solves some puzzles and gets a little metal ball for her troubles, which can only be the map to the blue bad boy. But as she is about to make way with the ball, she is accosted by a bunch of robo-assassins. She beats them, and they self-destruct as she runs away with the metal ball. She also has a robo-butler who slams her with a comeback 2 seconds after we meet him.
If you didn't keep at such a safe distance, maybe we wouldn't have lost communication.
I am just following standard Jedi mission protocol.
Next time, stay close. Watch my back.
That is the job of a Jedi Padawan learner, which I am not.
This droid is another one of my favorite characters, because he has many moments like this, but not nearly enough. There are a couple things to talk about for this scene as well. First of all of these scenes are really slow. I understand cinematography, but this becomes a reoccurring issue in not only the world building scenes, where it makes more sense, it's less of an issue, but also in the exposition scenes, where they are really a drag. Also, I'm getting really tired of the find a map trope. A lot of Star Wars media recently has been really hung on stupid location MacGuffins, where you have to find the thing to get to the other thing before the other guys who are also looking for the thing find the thing. A smaller but stupid issue is the fact that the assassin droids announced when they were trying to blow up Ahsoka. This could have been fixed by the writers having made Ahsoka smart, and guessed that they would blow up through past experience, and then made a comment afterwards like, why do they always blow up? This would imply she's dealt with this sort of situation before, without having to make them announce they're trying to kill her. Ahsoka goes back to base, where we are introduced to another main character, General Tentacles, who is the biggest offender of the strategic stupids trope I mentioned earlier. They talk a bit about how Greybeard stole Witch Lady, and we switch scenes to a dramatic announcement type thing. A ceremony of sorts. An old man commemorates a bunch of people, and turns to let the next main character, Sabine, on stage to talk. Only, she's not there. Yep, she straight up left a ceremony honoring her fallen comrade. Who technically isn't dead, but, we'll get to that, obviously. For those who don't know, Sabine was in Rebels, the animated show, and she was a sneaky, cheeky Mandalorian girl who was taught under Ahsoka on how to use a lightsaber. She has a good heart and cared for those around her deeply. In this new show, not so much. She's reckless and would rather risk hurting herself or others just to not go to a show honoring her and the sacrifice of a good friend of hers. She's also really smug about it. I don't know what the writers thought about what they were making her in the context of this show, but it feels more like they want to make her a wild card without remembering or knowing who Sabine was in the other show. So anyway, she goes off to her lonely tower filled with cat and watches a little video, and then we switch back to Greybeard once more. So Greybeard and assistants learn the map was stolen and are sent to a planet called Lothal to find Sabine, most likely to use her to get the map from Ahsoka. We cut back to Sabine, who meets up with Ahsoka and Ro Butler, whose actual name is, of course, Hu Yang, but I will be calling him Ro Butler. So Ahsoka gives Sabine the map ball, and then a lot of random dialogue happens, intercut with scenes showing Assistant tracking down Sabine. In this block of exposition, there was one line I wanted to discuss, which was, sometimes the right reasons have the wrong consequences. The point of reasons isn't to seek out the right consequences through the right reasons. If the right reasons lead you down to the wrong consequences, that isn't the reason's fault. That's user error. If, for instance, you are attempting to fertilize your garden, so you murder somebody and bury them as fertilizer, you have done something for the right reasons in order to fertilize your garden, but you have ended up with the wrong consequences. A murder charge. It isn't the reason's fault, it is your fault for not looking for more options. After the exposition, Sabine figures out the map ball is a Rubik's sphere, but just as she solves it, she's attacked and stabbed. This should have killed her. Lightsabers are made of red-hot plasma, and judging from where she was stabbed and how long it was kept in, that should have boiled her innards. Like no kidding, people in real life have been killed from less extreme versions of that, so it makes no sense for her to live. We all know that she will, though, because no show or movie is gonna kill somebody these days. So, that wraps up episode 1. Not the most invigorating, but it does get better. Then it gets worse. A lot worse. Episode 2. Episode 2 begins with Sabine being fine. Of course. We then cut to Greybeard and Assistant going to a stone altar of some kind, before we cut back to Ahsoka and Sabine again. They're able to figure out where Greybeard is through the head of some droid Sabine beat the shit out of, before cutting back once again to Greybeard at the altar. So Witch Lady uses the altar and metal ball to find out where they're going next, and then we cut yet again to Sabine and Ahsoka. God damn! Like, chill with the edits. I want to watch a show, not juggle. So Ahsoka and General Tentacles go to a shipping yard that was made from a repurposed Sith shipping yard that was run by Witch Lady. Also, funnily enough, Ahsoka asks if any of the former staff, who were Sith, still work there, and the manager says yes. That's a bit like finding a meth lab, shutting it down, reusing the equipment for medicine, and then hiring the meth cooks to cook it. And then the manager says, you will find ex-Imperials at every level of our government. Okay, you're just asking to be overthrown at this point. So some more dialogue happens, and General Tentacles senses something afoot at the shipping facility. They dig a little deeper, and surprise! The workers were actually Empire, and the robot they need is about to fly away. Ahsoka fights the Empire guys, and General Tentacles flies after the ship that has Robo MacGuffin. This fight really portrays how sad the choreography has gotten, to the point they made a boomerang lightsaber feel bland. As for General Tentacles, she was able to pop a tracking device on the ship at the last moment through the power of plot armor. Episode 2 ends with Sabine cutting her hair and Witch Lady being in a giant circular ship. Riveting. If you couldn't tell, not too much happened in this episode, and that trend continues quite a bit. Also, this brings up a bit more of the strategic stupids. When a shipping yard is being run by your enemies, that's a strategic stupid. Also, there's a point where General Tentacles is asking about a ship model, and the evil manager says it's classified. General Tentacles seems astonished that something should be classified when she's a general. But this mentality is contradicted by something we see later that builds into a strategic stupid. This basically concludes Episode 2. Episode 3! Episode 3 opens with Ahsoka trying to teach Sabine how to use the Force. This is stupid. Sabine was not supposed to be a Jedi. She is a Mandalorian rogue, scrappy, cheeky, and skilled more with a blaster than a saber. The writers want to change this for no apparent reason, and it just lessens the diversity of character within the show. We then cut to General Tentacles joining a meeting with the Senators, who are above General Tentacles in rank. This is why it's stupid for General Tentacles to think nothing is classified to her. What if one of the Senators had restricted something? Anywho, General Tentacles explains the shipping facility business, and how she thinks the blue bad boy is behind it all, and how she needs approval to send a group out to find him. However, they don't approve of this, so obviously she does what a responsible general would do and listen to her superiors, doesn't create a team, and requests Ahsoka and Sabine to return at once. Nah, I'm just kidding. She actually commits treason. But first, we cut back to Sabine and Ahsoka, who are following the ship they were tracking and then are ambushed by Assistant and some droids. They blow up some of the bad guys, and then see the big circular ship Witch Lady was in earlier, which I will refer to as the Condom, because it's round, small things can fit inside, and its load never reaches its target. Seriously, it misses every single shot that it fires, but one. So their ship is hit, and so Ahsoka decides to kill herself, and walk into space to fight some of the enemy spaceships. It doesn't work, she survives, and they escape by doing some loop-de-loops around a bunch of space whales. The episode ends with their ship being broken on the planet with the stone altar from earlier, and with Greybeard about to whoop them. Episode 4. Episode 4 has one of the more interesting scenes, but first, some not so interesting scenes. So Ahsoka and Sabine are stuck, and they are located by Greybeard's robo-henchmen. They fight the bots, which once again displays the pitiful fighting skills from Ahsoka and Sabine. I don't think an actor or actress should have to learn how to fight just for a show, but they need to have convincing fighting skills, the ability to act out the fight. And Ahsoka just doesn't have that. Oh yeah, remember how I said General Tentacles commits treason? Well, now's the time! So Tentacles goes against her orders and makes a team to assist Ahsoka in finding the blue baddie, and she states this line, quote, "When you're a general, you can disobey orders too," unquote. That is how to be demoted. Your job as general is to keep your people safe and lead them to the best of your abilities the way your superiors want, and disobedience on such a scale is exactly how to do the opposite of that. It's reckless, dangerous, stupid, and in the end, useless other than as a free ride. So Ahsoka and Sabine find Assistant and Boomerang Blade, and they get into another mediocre confrontation. Ahsoka kills her opponent and goes to get the map, but is met with the awesome blade of Greybeard. I mean, there's a bunch of crappy dialogue first, but then they fight, And this is where I saw a flash of potential. A vision of great story unfolding before me. All the previous flaws undone, all prior sins forgiven if they had only continued down the path I foresaw. Majestic storytelling, the battles of two characters, both of whom neither quite fits in with either Jedi or Sith. A tale of balance, nuance, and greatness. Inspiration hit as worlds of colors swam before my eyes, unveiling a show unlike any other Star Wars has conceived of. The clashing of blades in all different styles, different paths of training slamming together in an ultimate tournament of combat conquest, leading up to one goal. I saw something truly great in this scene that could have been a reality, but it was stolen from me. Stolen from all of us. These buffoons at the wheel have the resources to make new worlds, weave tales of gloriousness and might, and portray the most awesome heroes and dastardly villains imaginable. And yet it is wasted on the sad recreation of Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, somebody who doesn't know how to live up to the name Ahsoka. What I see on screen doesn't show awesomeness or power. It shows bad choreography and mediocre acting. If I am so out of immersion that I talk about how bad the choreography is, you are in big trouble. Now, with my rant out of the way, let me describe to you the scene that gave me such a glimpse of splendor. So Greybeard and Ahsoka face off, neither attacking each other for a weirdly long period of time, but then they fight. This is where the choreography actually has an uptick in quality, specifically for Greybeard. There is a very evident style that he uses, heavy-handed and powerful, but still fast enough to parry Ahsoka's blows. This scene is not the best scene in the world, and it has plenty of flaws and errors mixed in, but it shows the potential that was buried in the bones of this show. I had my mic turned around. Sorry about that, editor. This is why I titled it The Biggest Disappointment. Not because it was the worst show, but because it had the most missed potential out of any of the Star Wars shows I have seen. Excluding maybe Season 1 of Mandalorian. It had so many things, so many raw materials to make something spectacular. It was building off of Rebels, Clone Wars, Ahsoka, and Star Wars as a whole. And yet the idiots in the writing room couldn't make something more compelling than a map fetch quest for an old villain. The choreography is unimmersive and slow, and the actors and actresses, again, except Greybeard obviously, are unconvincing. This show doesn't make me interested to see more. It just shows me what I would want to fix, which is what the editors, directors, and screenwriters are supposed to do. Sorry for going on another small rant, but if you can't tell, I'm extremely peeved at this enormous waste of potential and the destruction of two amazing characters, meaning Sabine and Ahsoka. Not including everyone else who may or may not have been ruined in this show. Good lord, so Ahsoka gets pushed off a cliff by Greybeard, and Sabine gives him the map to try and find Ezra. Who is Ezra? He is one of the main characters from Rebels, and he was taken away by the big blue bad boy at the end of the show. Sabine wants to find him because she cares for her friends, even though she refused to go to the ceremony honoring him earlier in the show. So Sabine is taken by Greybeard, and General Tentacles arrives as reinforcements as the Condom attempts to escape. As Tentacles and crew are about to attack, the Condom uses its special move and jumps into hyperspace. Can't most ships do that? Anyway, so it destroys half of General's crew. Who would have guessed that going into enemy territory with only 5 ships against orders would have been a bad idea? This episode ends with Ahsoka being in some kind of dream sequence, but we'll talk about that in a minute. First up, let's discuss a strategic stupid. Greybeard got the map from Sabine because he said he would take her to Ezra. Fair enough, but Sabine has no reason to believe that A. that Ezra is alive, B. that Greybeard would take her to him, or C. that getting to Ezra is worth Greybeard locating and retrieving the blue baddie to start another war. Sabine is an imbecile. She gave up the map to a highly intelligent, highly dangerous commanding officer for the promise of being able to see Ezra. Even if Greybeard keeps his promise, he could just kill her after her having seen Ezra. And kill Ezra too, come to think of it. Point being, don't take the word of a villain, even if they are the coolest villain. Episode 5. Episode 5 opens on a slow-mo booty shot. Haha! I guess you could call it Ahsoka. Nah, I just wanted to make that joke. It actually opens on General Tentacles and crew looking for Sabine and Ahsoka, but not for long before we cut into Ahsoka's dream world. She talks to Dream Anakin, and Dream Anakin asks her if she wants to live or die. She says, I won't fight you. Which, if you couldn't tell, isn't an answer to his f***ing question. This one question, do you want to live or die, is asked multiple times, and I think Ahsoka only actually answers this once. He didn't even say fight when he asked her the question. She just assumed that's what it meant. Ahsoka and Dream Anakin fight, and once again, I saw a flicker of potential, although not nearly as strong as the previous flicker. Whoever plays Anakin can actually act like he knows how to use a lightsaber, and he beats the shit out of Ahsoka. She then falls into a flashback or something featuring a young Ahsoka and Anakin. Also, I will say, usually I'm not a fan of child actors. In fact, I have a list I'm compiling for a future video on that topic. However, young Ahsoka's actress does a decent job. So, good job, young Ahsoka actress. So young Ahsoka sees the horrors of war, and she blames herself for leading them to their deaths. And yes, technically, it's her job to make sure as many survive as possible. But war is war and people gonna die. So the best you can do is end it as quickly as possible with force to minimize casualties. She talks about how their mistakes cost lives, and again, they aren't wrong. If that is the case, it is better to lose a couple lives through mistakes, but then learn from those mistakes and save countless lives, than to make a mistake and be like, well, clearly there's no point, guess we'll just let the other guys win. I'm sure many of you understand this, but in war, generally it is better for some people to die and your side to win than to just give up. This is what prevents domination, keeps cultures and structures alive. Look at Ukraine. When Russia tried to sidle up to them, they didn't just roll over. They had to fight to stay separate, and in turn, Russia had to fight to dominate. Anyway, so Ahsoka gets upset at Anakin for attempting some gallows humor, and then as Anakin walks into battle once more, his silhouette turns into Darth Vader. I guess the show is insinuating that Anakin became evil because of the war, but I think he had hints of evil from the beginning, especially, when his mom was murdered. Anywho, so Anakin gives Ahsoka the live or die question again, and she doesn't answer, so they fight, and then finally she says she chooses to live. So she wakes up from the dream state, and it's night somehow, and she gets rescued. Also, slight side note, but she makes the best brain damage face I have ever seen. You see that? The asymmetric eyes, that's hilarious. So when Ahsoka wakes up, there's some dialogue, really doesn't matter. It's mostly stuff we, the audience, already know. But then Ro Butler comes in clutch with this wild roast.
Come along, I'll show you the training room.
You have a training room in your starship? Will you train me?
No.
And then again.
Do you know how to build a lightsaber?
Yes?
Will you teach me?
No.
Damn, Ro Butler is a close second to Greybeard, I'm telling you. Back to the losers, Ahsoka uses the Force to find out what happened to Sabine, and General Tentacles is finally caught having disobeyed orders. She is told to go back with her fleet and Ahsoka, which of course she doesn't. Instead, she sends her fleet back and then tells Ahsoka to drive her ship down the throat of a space whale. Yeah, remember those guys from before? Well, Ahsoka has now become lunch. I'm kidding, again, although that would make more sense for that to have happened. Instead, Ahsoka uses the Force to convince the whale to take them on its little migration, and Ahsoka just hoped that's where they needed to go. The episode ends with Tentacles and her fleet being caught and retrieved by another general with no consequences for Tentacles, and Ahsoka being Ubered away by the space whale. So there are a few strategic stupids in this episode, almost all of which are at the end. First is a stupid on the writer's part. The Force is not silly putty. It doesn't do everything and anything you ask. Yes, the Force is in everything, and yes, Ahsoka can use the Force, but that doesn't mean she can talk to space whales, or dream the whereabouts of Sabine. Second is that the whale should have eaten Ahsoka. I'm not really sure what his diet is, but he really should have swallowed her, because now that he didn't, we've got 3 more episodes of this to go through. Lastly, General Tentacles should have been demoted at the very least, possibly worse, depending on the justice system employed in Random Space World. I think that wraps up episode 5. On to episode 6. Episode 6 opens with Ahsoka and Ro Butler inside of a space whale, not being digested like they should be. There's some dialogue, some pitiful character building, the best of which is, of course, Ro Butler. And then we cut to Sabine. She's locked up, and then unlocked as Greybeard and gang reach their destination. So Greybeard and gang go to the planet, learn some witchy stuff from some witches, and then a broken down Star Destroyer lands on them. Anyway, so on that ship is the big blue boy himself, Thrawn. More interestingly, though, is his Commander-in-Chief's mask. Look at that thing! As an ex-mask enjoyer myself, I can say for sure, that is a pretty sick mask. So Sabine talks to Thrawn, there's some words, and then Sabine gets let free to find Ezra. Aha! But it was a trap! This moment actually remedies the strategic stupid I had mentioned earlier.
Sabine Wren will have the opportunity of finding Ezra Bridger, just as promised. And if she does, you and your master will destroy them both.
Yep, this proves it. Sabine is an idiot. Speaking of idiots, so Sabine fights some Tusken Raider knockoffs, and we cut back to Thrawn sending in a couple of attack squads to assist Greybeard in destroying Sabine and Ezra, plus anyone else in the vicinity. It is also implied that Thrawn is willing to leave Greybeard, which, while I understand it would be good to leave as quickly as possible, Greybeard is not the kind of guy to forget something like that. So Sabine has an argument with her rat horse, loses, and then she finds some crab people that lead her away. We then cut back to Greybeard and learn more about his end goals, to bring about a greater power of some sort, which sounds pretty cool. We cut back to Sabine, who arrives at the Crab Village, where we find Ezra. Yay! Mission accomplished. If I sound unenthusiastic, that is because I'm mimicking the amount of skill put into the reaction of finding a friend you thought had died, according to Sabine. That scene is like cold, limp bacon. We finish out the episode with Thrawn learning about Ahsoka being on her way, and with more doubt being slung at Greybeard. One thing I will say is that I like how Thrawn reacts to the news. He doesn't freak out or panic, he just gives orders. He actually makes the smart move and prepares for her assumed arrival. He simply says, act as if she's alive, tell me everything about her, and then kill any space whales you see incoming. Aside from that, there is a definite undertone of betrayal lurking under Greybeard. So many people are just ready to backstab him, including, but not limited to, Thrawn, Witch Lady, 3 Witch Ladies, Ahsoka, Sabine, Assistant, and whatever secret power he's looking for that could easily blow up on his face. However, we know that will not be the case because, most unfortunately, extremely sadly, the actor who played Greybeard, the best character in the Forsaken show of Ahsoka, has passed away. He passed away immediately after Ahsoka, obviously due to the fact that he was in such a bad show that his heart just stopped. You will be missed. You were the greatest part of this show. Mad respect, amazing acting. I wish I could have seen more. Not in Ahsoka, preferably in something better, but you were a great actor. The singular, the one. You were the actor in this show. The only actor. Sorry. Anyway, Episode 7. Episode 7 starts with another surprise. General Tentacles in court to face justice for her crimes. Except she doesn't, because it turns out that one of the council members was doing a naughty and miscasting the votes on Organa's behalf and whatnot. But clearly this is a cheap way for her to get out of punishing Tentacles. Easiest way to prove that is that Tentacles didn't know anything was wrong, so she thought she was disobeying orders, just like everybody else did. The writers clearly needed to free her up from the problems they had created for her, but in a way that keeps her in her position of general to progress the plot later. There's so many better ways to do that, so many, but I digress. We cut to Ahsoka in the space whale arriving at their destination, only for it to be booby-trapped with space mines. The whales escape, realizing the mistake they had made by helping Ahsoka, and Ahsoka makes her way onto the planet while being pursued by fighter jets. We cut to Thrawn for a little bit, who learns of Ahsoka's arrival, and then back to Ahsoka fleeing the fighters and turning off power in order to hide. We then cut to Ahsoka and Ezra, who we see are about to be attacked by Greybeard and crew, and then to the 3 Witch Ladies for some dialogue, and then another cut back to Ahsoka. I know I'm summarizing here, but it felt like the jumps were happening this fast in real time. Ahsoka contacts Sabine through the Force, and the 3 Witch Ladies locate Ahsoka's ship. As Ahsoka makes a break for Sabine, Sabine herself is under attack from Greybeard and a group of bandits he had collected. As the fight progresses, Ahsoka joins in from the sky, and Greybeard watches from the side. Well, look at that, the gang's all here. Ahsoka squares up once again with Greybeard as Sabine and Ezra fight the bandits. Ezra does the stupid thing where he refuses both his lightsaber and blaster, saying the Force is my ally. So they defeat the bandits, and then some stormtroopers fly in, so Ahsoka distracts Greybeard and kills the stormtroopers. We then cut to Thrawn, who says it was a success because they distracted Ahsoka long enough to load up their cargo and get ready to leave. Like, dude, you lost 2 squads as a diversion when you yourself said that your numbers dwindle. Why not come up with a better solution, like a diplomatic distraction? Have one of your folk, either Greybeard or assistant, or any number of stormtroopers, convince Ahsoka to stop fighting and talk about the situation. You can even call in the earlier flashback of Ahsoka not wanting to fight, and this will lead to Ahsoka wanting to talk. Then just have them talk until you're either done with the cargo and kill them all, or figure out a way to leave without them realizing. Simple as pie. But no. He went with permanently losing 2 squads to get Ahsoka to look the other way. And that rounds out the episode. This is probably one of the most bland shows I have watched. The main villain hasn't done anything yet. There's no weapon, no plan other than get off planet, and the only higher progress we've heard about is the mysterious power mentioned by Greybeard in the second to last episode. You're supposed to leave hints of a larger threat throughout the story, so people can see a build-up and feel anticipation about the bigger threat or mysterious entity. Nope, at the end of the series, they're like, alright, some plot should be added right about now, wouldn't you say? Don't worry, folks, just 1 episode left. Ugh. They're probably trying to save this mysterious power for a cliffhanger in the next season, but A, I'm not watching that second season, and B, Greybeard, the one who would be looking for this mysterious power, is now dead. So they're kinda sunk. Anyway, on to the last episode, episode 8. Episode 8, the final episode, begins with Witch Lady becoming a full witch and getting a witch sword, which brings up another issue I have. Why is there magic? Like, I know I'm bringing this up pretty late, but magic was never really in the cards for Star Wars. The Force could be considered magic, but the writers are clearly implying that the magic Witch Lady is using is distinct from the Force. It would have been better and made more sense to not add magic, but instead show that the Witch Ladies use the Force in ways that one should not, twisting and manipulating it for evil, in much the same way that Palpatine could use lightning and keep Vader alive using his mysterious dark forces. Anyway, so we cut to Ahsoka and the gang, who have some dialogue, and they're attacked by some TIE fighters. They beat the TIE fighters, but break their ship in the process, forcing them to have to attempt to hitchhike with Thrawn. The plan? Ride some rat horses up to it and break in. Great plan. So they go through with their plan, and it works because the writers don't care about adding the threat of death for their characters. Go plot armor. So Ahsoka and crew are now in the temple right below the ship, and they kill a bunch of stormtroopers. But then Thrawn has the witch ladies do some hocus pocus, and the dead stormtroopers come back as zombies. This is Star Wars now. Zombie stormtroopers. So while Ahsoka and crew are escaping the zombie stormtroopers, the condom deploys onto the beaten up Star Destroyer so it can go into hyperspace fully protected. Wear protection, kids. I mean, kids shouldn't be wearing protection because they shouldn't have to wear protection because they are kids. Kids 18 and older, wear protection. Back to Ahsoka, they've almost made it to Thrawn's ship, but are stopped by Witch Lady and her witch sword. Ahsoka goes against Witch Lady while Sabine and Ezra go on ahead to fight more stormtroopers. So Ezra and Sabine are getting the stuffing beat out of them by 2 stormtroopers, and Sabine tries to use the Force to get her lightsaber. There's been a running gag of Sabine trying to use the Force and it never working throughout the show. And I wanted, more than anything, for her to not be able to do it again and just die. That comedy would have been incredible. But no, Sabine, of course, is now able to use the Force and kill stormtroopers. Wow, how great. So now that the ship is protected, Thrawn is about to penetrate into deep space, but Ezra is able to get on the ship as it lifts off of the altar thing. Sabine and Ahsoka are left on the ground to kill some more stormtroopers and Witch Lady. As the condom is taking off, Ahsoka's ship reappears, having been fixed by Butler, and they pursue the condom. But it's too late. Thrawn does an evil speech and blasts away into deep space, leaving Sabine and Ahsoka behind. The episode ends showing us that Ahsoka, Sabine, Assistant, and Greybeard are trapped on the same planet Thrawn was, and that Ezra snuck off the condom using a stormtrooper suit and made it back to General Tentacles in them. With that, we have reached the end of Ahsoka. In this video, I tried to discuss the important points of interest as I went in order to make it easier to understand, but I still have a few points that I want to talk about at the end. Nothing happened in this show. This is 1 episode's worth of content if you do it properly, and maybe 3 if you want a bit of extra wiggle room. The fact that Thrawn took 8 episodes to go from one planet to a different planet in 8 40 to 50 minute episodes is ridiculous. Whoever made this should be ashamed of themselves. As for overall thoughts, as stated, there are many issues with the plot, most of which are just the writers being lazy bums and being like, oh, now their ship is fixed. Oh, the person arrived just in time to save them. And oh, there aren't consequences because they're the good guy. Lastly is my overwhelming disappointment that the writers and directors and whoever else made this show ruined not only Ahsoka the character, Sabine, Rebels the show, and Star Wars, but also the amazing potential that this show had. To be fair, Ahsoka is not the thing that killed Star Wars, but it had a good shot at bringing some people back and establishing a new fan base, a new, anything, something to revive a little bit of the joy that we used to have out of Star Wars. And it was murdered! Anyway, that wraps up this review. Ahsoka is a mediocre show at best, and a disaster at worst, and it isn't worth the time needed to watch this show. This review took me quite a while to make, and I'm planning on making more similar videos soon. I'm still getting familiar with this format, especially with the face thing, but I will strive to improve it to the best of my abilities. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any comments, you know where to leave them. And if you have any video ideas or any bigger conversation you want to have, feel free to join my Discord. With that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.